Hey everybody, it's Justin with Fireside Games, and welcome to this behind-the-scenes making of Castle Panic: The Wizard's Tower. I'm going to show you a little bit about how we do the art for the game, specifically the card art. So let me show you how this works around here. Okay, so what we have here is, of course, our friendly wizard, about to be casting a powerful spell. Now, this is in the middle of production. Usually, it starts out as a sketch, something very much like that. In this case, it's a wizard casting a fireball, since this is the fireball card. Once I got the sketch, scan that in, clean it up a little bit, go ahead and bring in all my colors, some of which are nicely labeled, and we basically start laying him out as he needs to be. The process for that, good old Photoshop, allows us to do some neat tricks with things like laying in different layers in flats. So I'll bring in things like the skin, various bits of clothing. Some things make more sense to layer, other things can be combined on the same layer. We'll bring in, let's see, there's his little accessories, there's his hair, and let's see, that's most of the flats. So once we've got the flat colors laid in, then we actually go in and we bring in all the highlights and shadows, the stuff that actually makes him look like him. So zoom in a little more, you can really see what I'm talking about. For example, blank, oops, I'm sorry, wrong one. Blank, not so blank. Now he actually has a face. Oh look, now he has eyes. He's not nearly as scary. That goes there. We start bringing in all the different layers. Then of course we add more detail, more detail, and more detail. Bring in that nice sweet mustache. Personally, I think this guy looks a little bit like Kenny Rogers right now. Not really sure how that happened. He was just meant to look like a good classic fantasy wizard, but hey, that's what happens. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to cast a fireball, know when to not live in a castle with monsters all around it, stuff like that. Anyway, so we'll play around with this, get more colors in, more details in, and I'll show you what it looks like a little bit later when we're ready to go final. Okay, so once we've got our wizard basically done, let's see, he's got all the nice detail we wanted there, all of his little effects and everything. The problem is, every good wizard needs to be casting a fireball, especially for the fireball card. So, time to move on and make an effect for this. Now, I've already set up a system in Photoshop where I've got some layers that allow me to do some painting involving a little bit of dark, followed with a little bit of light, and I can get a really nice fire effect. So I'm going to play with this. Zoom on in here and you can kind of see how it works. I'm going to experiment with that, use some different brushes, go in with some different techniques here. Try and just get that really flamey kind of look that I want. Let's see if we can get that. Okay, so we've got our flame. Don't need the lines anymore, but one of the things I'm going to need is I'd like an effect coming off of his hand. So we're going to go for some sort of fiery glow, and I'll experiment with a couple of different things. I have one down here that's kind of crackly. I sort of like where that's going, but I'm going to experiment with that a little more. Maybe come in and give it a little bit of a different effect, bump up some of the textures. We'll see what we can get going with that. Okay, so we've got our fire figured out. Got some glows around it, a little bit of rough edges here and there. And if we turn off our lines, we can see, yep, that's a pretty good looking fireball right there. Nice and crackly around the edges. So, what we want to do now is give him some kind of a background. And I have already experimented, and I know that I have a nice shockwave kind of background I really want for this. Something that really shows the energy of that fireball. And I happen to know that this color layer on top of that will give me a really nice turquoise kind of color. Along with these zap lines, a little bit of an anime feel there, but mostly just trying to get the energy of that fireball going out. So now the only other thing is go in and look at some details. For example, I think I'd like to put a little bit of a glow on the wizard himself. Something kind of just coming off a little bit, maybe a little bit of a highlight on his hat, and who knows, maybe put a little down by his arm, things like that. Something to show that the glow from this fire is actually extending out beyond just his hand. Okay, so I got my wizard glow figured out. I'm going to go ahead and call that done. Now that's the final piece, but there's one extra catch. It actually needs to be put into the card frame that we have. And that exists right there. So once I've done that in a separate file, I'll go ahead and put that in with all the different edge treatments and everything, save that out as a final, then we bring it into InDesign where we do the final composition. And that's what it looks like in InDesign. This is where the text goes, along with any little icons and details we need. You can see in this bar over here, I've got the entire deck of cards being built for the Wizard deck. Scroll up a little bit and you can see we've got a green fireball, a red fireball, things like that. There's always tweaks that come later, but this is basically one of the last steps. Once it's in here, we've got our text in, we're ready for final proofing, and then it gets sent off to the factory, and they make cards for us that go into our game. So there you have it. That's kind of the quick run-through of how a piece of art goes from a simple sketch to a final piece in the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Come back for more videos later. Thanks!